Amagansett resident and award-winning documentary filmmaker Marc Levin has focused his lens on the economic slump of the last several years and its effects on the island in his new HBO film, Hard Times Lost on Long Island. Today, you'll hear from Levin about why the economy and Long Island are playing a starring role in his latest film. Plus, Long Island has seen a 57% increase in entertainment-related businesses over the past decade and a half, according to published reports. So, we asked Levin about the bottom line of making money, making movies.
The idea that we had spent so much money on schooling and we were so highly educated, and we certainly did not expect to have financial difficulties. That is true.
He peeks inside this Long Island family's crisis, and then he takes their story and struggles with unemployment to the world.
We both had jobs. We got a mortgage in this tiny little house that we had purchased. We could pay for the mortgage. I lost my job.
Filmmaker Marc Levin's latest film, Hard Times Lost on Long Island, focuses on those who've been written off.
I'm panic-stricken. I'm feeling as if I have absolutely nothing.
Those unemployed for at least a year.
People with tremendous experience, people that could make a tremendous contribution to the business community, to the local economy, and they're going to waste. They're being disappeared.
Levin owns a home in Amagansett and married a Long Islander. But he picked Long Island as the backdrop for this film because he believes America has this picture-perfect image of the island, and of Levittown in particular.
We chose Long Island as a place to look because Levittown has become part of the popular imagination as kind of the birthplace of the post-World War II modern suburban dream.
With big houses, manicured lawns, and nice cars, nobody guessed the devastation that some of the unemployed on Long Island were dealing with. They would tell Marc.
My neighbors don't know. My own family doesn't know. That stunned me.
Levin says there were some disadvantages to shooting on Long Island, especially since he was budgeting for the film.
It's not cheap. It's not cheap to live there. It's not cheap to rent there. It's not cheap to eat there. It's expensive.
But it's the inside stories that have kept Levin interested in making documentaries.
I think it begins with, first of all, listening to the stories.
Levin's own beginning in the storytelling business happened thanks to his love of the Stones, as in the Rolling Stones. He learned that a documentary called Gimme Shelter was being made in town about the legendary British band. So he came up with an idea. He would show up at the studio where David Maysles was directing the film.
I went upstairs and I walked in and somebody just handed me a bunch of film cans and said, take these around the block to do art. And I did. They thought I was already working there as an intern.
Then,
I think it was the end of the fourth day, David Maysles came up to me and he said, who the hell are you? And I said, you know, my name's Marc Levin.
Nearly 100 documentaries, films, and TV shows later, Levin says making movies today is actually the easy part. Take, for example, the cost of outfitting an editing suite.
We have here now, 10 years ago, would have cost maybe $150,000. Now maybe you can get it for $15,000.
Nowadays, Levin's films run into the several $100,000 range. Of course, with the advent of YouTube, where anybody can become a quote-unquote filmmaker, he says the focus has to be on finding ways to actually get paid for your work.
It's now not so much making it as making a living making it, and that's a trick, and I'm not sure I have the answer yet.
While still figuring that part out, partnerships with companies like HBO have helped economically. HBO, which is airing Hard Times Lost on Long Island, also financed the project and owns the rights to it. Levin says to keep a filmmaking business going, you have to keep the pipeline of ideas flowing. You can have 3 or 4 projects in different phases of production, but you really need to have 10 to 20 of them ready for development. You also need to be willing to take risks, like he did when he decided to make an independent film.
It wasn't until really the late 80s, till I was in my 30s, that I took a real risk in terms of saying, I'm going to make my own film. I did. I made a crazy film, which my company is named after, Blowback. And I mortgaged my home, and I put it all on the line.
It paid off. Today, at his Blowback Film Studio in Manhattan, Levin discusses his next projects. He usually works with a core group of 5 to 6 people, but he generally employs about 10 to 12 people for a production. Still, for Levin, it all goes back to bringing to light the human cost of society's problems, especially on a film like Hard Times, Lost on Long Island. And the film premiered on HBO on Monday, July 9th. Currently, there's no sequel planned for Hard Times, Lost on Long Island.